Hey y'all, and welcome to another day of VEDA. Today is April 10th, and I will be discussing my brand new spinning wheel. I apologize for any background sounds. I do have the dishwasher currently going. I bought an electric spinning wheel. This is a I don't want to say it's a cheap version, but it was one of the more affordable versions of a spinning wheel that I could get. What I bought was the Electric Eel Wheel, which is by Dreaming Robots. They have a shop that seems like it is hosted by Shopify. I actually found them mentioned in a Ravelry group, just mentioning a Kickstarter for their mini version. Now, the mini had a Kickstarter that ended at the end of last year, and the actual minis for sale will not be available till probably July. Or at least that was the last date that I had read. And so I had asked in the actual spinning wheel forum had a group, so I went and asked if I should try the 5.1 or if I should wait for the mini. And pretty much overwhelmingly everyone said if you can afford the actual version, to go ahead and get that and not just to wait for the mini. One of the big pluses to getting the regular version is that it is meant for plying yarn, and that is something that I tend to have a lot of trouble doing on my own. I've only done it a couple times, but it is not my favorite thing to do with the drop spindle, as I find I get the things tangled, and most recently I find that I break my yarn a lot while trying to do it, and I wasn't able to patch it, so yeah, I get a lot of knots in my final work yarn, and that's not what I want. So I was happy to try something that should at least improve my plying. Now, if you're not experienced in spinning, the difference between plying yarn and just spinning yarn is one, you turn either clockwise, and then if you're going to ply it, you turn it counterclockwise. So it's not like a difficult thing, but what I find trouble with is holding my two separate things of yarn and keeping them separate and not tangled together. Now there are, I assume, ways to help manage this issue. I tried putting it in a box and putting it through two holes outside of that, which did help, but again, that was just kind of my own little dream up, and I'm sure there are actual good ways of doing it, whereas I don't have any proper supplies, at least up till this point. So that's kind of, I ran into the wall and I kind of quit trying to ply my stuff and gave up on that project because it was just getting a little annoying, I guess. So on the mini, I'm pretty sure I did read that you can trick it into doing the ply or reversing the twist, but it is not actually meant to do this. It's only meant to spin one way. So it's just a little more difficult, whereas the standard version, which is the version that I got, or the 5.1, is one where you can pretty much turn the dial and spin backwards or forwards at any point. And I probably will revisit this at a later date when I get more experience, because this is the very first electric spinning wheel that I have ever seen. And it is also the first spinning wheel of any kind that I've actually ever gotten to lay my hands on. And seeing as I am not a visual person, or, I'm blind, so even though I've been around other spinning wheels, I have not actually been able to see them or see what they're doing. So this was all a very new learning experience for me, and I am still very new at figuring it out. So for starters, I actually appear to have opened my box upside down, which is a really common thing for me. I think this has more to do with the fact that my son brought in the box from outside because I figured it would be in our mailbox bank, and it was actually at the front door. And so they came home from school and brought it in, and my one son handed it to me, and I just laid it down, and I didn't pay attention to which side the shipping label was on, and just opened the box upside down. So it was not exactly the best packaging for me because I was taking it apart from the bottom, but I think that was a lot of my own personal errors and not any fault of theirs. What I did notice was that the actual spinning wheel seemed to be fairly loosely packed. I mean, not that it was loose, but it's not concealed in anything. And I think I would even just prefer that it be in some kind of plastic wrapping, as there was a little hook that you use to feed the yarn through one of, I think it's to feed through the knob. I'm not really sure exactly on how all this works yet. But that I actually lost and didn't even know it was part of my package until my husband had came home, because I assumed it had gotten knocked loose from wherever it was hiding, even if it was in a parts thing, because one of the bags also seemed to have been loose. But yeah, I don't know exactly what happened there, if one of my sons had gotten into something and dumped it, but the parts are more for the Lazy Kate, so I don't know why it would have been together with those parts in the first place. Or it might have even been in the bag with the instructions, but I didn't notice it. So that was just kind of something I would like to see it better attached to the machine, or, you know, a little more identifiable, because I just didn't realize that it was even a part of it. The one nice thing about the machine is that it is fairly pretty much all put together when you take it out of the box. The only thing is that you have to plug in the plugs, and pretty much that's all you need to do to get started. There are these plastic knobs. I assume that they are for the actual spinning. It doesn't really address them in the instructions, or at least that's what I heard from my husband, but he saw videos of them being used, and I think that was one of the things that had been added from the version 5 to the 5.1 to help make the process smoother or help the wear on certain things. I'm not 100% sure on that. I might be making it up. But that's kind of my assumption, is that that is something that has been added, and that's why we didn't see something already mentioned about it. But once my husband got home, because I couldn't figure out how to get it threaded, and actually I went in the forums today and then read that I was having trouble getting the thing to start spinning, and I think that was mostly because you really need to tape your lead string onto the bobbin, not just tie it, because if it's not got any pressure or weight to it, it'll just keep spinning and not actually spinning onto your bobbin, which is something you kind of need. So I was getting it pretty much just, I was getting it to work, but I wasn't getting it to work, if that makes any sense. It wasn't actually collecting onto my bobbin. And then later I was getting it to spin, or I was getting it to feed, but I wasn't getting it to spin, and I think I just needed to actually hold the things going through the one part tighter, because, yeah. Anyways, so I'm going to actually go grab the spinning wheel now so I can go talk about it. It's in my hallway because it has a kind of short cord for its use, so I have very limited places that I can actually use it at the moment. A lot of people suggest that you get a portable, like, battery chargeable unit, and so we probably will be doing that for it, but I just don't have one at the moment, so it's pretty much sitting in the hallway where I had easy access or close access to plugs. Okay, so now I have it in my hands, and the thing that I noticed that was talked about, at least in the versions between the mini versus the 5.1, was something about the plug, and I can't remember which version people liked better or not, but I've noticed, at least with mine, that the actual power plug, which is the receded plug in the base of the machine, well, it's on the side of the machine, but mine seems to not always connect properly, and I don't know if that is an electrical issue or if it's just the plug not being as well of a good connection. It seems like there's a little light next to the plug, and it seems like half the time it just is flickery or won't come on at all. And if I just unplug it and replug it in, it comes on for the whole time. But if it doesn't just come on and stay on. I usually have to unplug it to get it to reconnect, even if it's all the way in. I just jiggle it or something to get it to come on. So I don't know if that's a wiring with this particular machine or if it's an issue with the kind of plug that it is. And then right next to that plug is the plug for the foot pedal, which was also a very common mentioned bonus to this machine, was that it has it's called a foot pedal, but everyone pretty much says that they don't use it for their foot. They use it more with their elbow or their knee, or I even saw Weston mention chin. I'm like, oh, that's totally something I would do. But what I'm finding, since I'm sitting on the floor in the hallway doing it right now, I am actually using like the side of my leg to on and off. But of course, I'm sure not everyone would be able to even sit in that position. So that's just me kind of being special, I guess. The other thing is on the opposite side of the machine is your dial for the to either spin it Z twist or S twist. That's just kind of your clockwise or your counterclockwise. And then you have your little supports, for your two things. And then it does come with a bobbin already installed on it. And then you also get two additional bobbins, which I was very tempted to get more bobbins when I bought it, but I did decide that I usually store things on paper tube rolls, and that I can probably still do that even while using this. It'll just take another minute to transfer things when I actually get ready to ply or use them. Oh, and there is a compartment on the bottom. It, I think, is just magnetic. It's easy to open, but since it is magnetic, it just snaps back to place and doesn't really move around, but that is how you can get in to see all your gears, and I assume if there's anything you need to replace or something breaks, that is how you would fix that. So this machine is $250, so it is not a cheap machine, but for being a spinning wheel, where your average spinning wheels are like $700, it still is not a bad price. Now the mini, when it gets actually released, is going to be, I think they said $65. So that still is like an amazing price for a little spinning wheel. This spinning wheel, I think they said was 9 by 6.5 by 7 or something thereabouts. So it is roughly, a lot of people use like the portable, like little coolers or big lunch pails to use as a carrying bag. So that kind of gives you an idea of size, and it is fairly lightweight, which is also a big bonus for traveling. I don't think that this being the size that it should be a negative for taking on the go, which I know a lot of people got the mini because it's supposed to be more portable, but I think this seems plenty portable as it is. That all being said, the people that make this is a small business, so they're not going to be like in stores like your Ashford or I don't know what the other Kromsky spinning wheels. I think they're pretty much only available online at the moment, and usually when they release a new model, it looks like they do Kickstarters, but of course I just found out about them this year, so I wasn't able to get on like a mini Kickstarter, which is something we were looking at before I decided that I was going to get a wheel with our house selling money. But yeah, anyway, so I have started to use this. I think since I am a bit of a perfectionist and I don't like super thick yarn, at least while spinning, because I want to be able to apply it, I have found that, and a lot of this is probably just figuring out tension and things, I am getting my yarn to break a lot, and I'm threading my machine a lot in a day. And I think that's something, again, that is going to improve just with practice and figuring out how I need to do it and things. But at some point, this will be a very useful machine. At this point, I can get a more consistent and thinner yarn on my spindles than I can on the spinning wheel. But it also took me a little while to get a nice, thin, consistent yarn on my spindles. So I assume that it's all just going to take a little time. And I'm still happy that I have my little wheel at this point. And so I hope you will continue to watch my channel and see how I get used to this machine and hopefully how the beautiful yarns that I do end up creating with this machine. Anyways, that's all for today's VEDA, and hopefully tomorrow I will have yarn mail to share with you all. So join me then. Talk to you later, guys.